All right, I finished kneading the dough, and I'm poking it so maybe you can get an idea of how soft it is. It is very slightly sticky, but it's no longer sticking to my hands, as you can see. And it's springy, and it feels elastic and alive, and it's ready to rise. So, I happen to have a dough bucket. You can certainly use the same bowl that you kneaded the bread in. Just wash it out and dry it. And then put a little oil. This is canola oil. You can put olive oil, but frankly I prefer flavorless oil when I'm doing just regular bread. If I was doing focaccia or something, sure, I'd use a good olive oil. But just a little drizzle is all you need. And then just pull the dough up around the edges to the middle. What I'm doing is stretching that outside of the dough. I'm making a bit of a skin on it. Then I'm going to put it right down in the oil. Swirl it around to coat the top with oil, and I'm just going to flip it. That. And the top, I hope you can see that, is nicely coated with oil. And again, if you're just doing this in a bowl or a pan, that's fine too. Just do the same thing. Coat the top, flip it over, and then you can cover it with plastic wrap. You can cover it with a damp, clean dish towel. I've got a dough bucket, so I've got a handy lid that I can put on. And this also gives me an idea of about where my dough is to start with. What I want is the dough to double. And that usually takes about half an hour. And so I'm going to put it in my oven. And underneath it, I'm going to boil a small pan of water. And I'm going to put the hot water on the rack at the bottom and put this in the upper rack in the oven. And that's my little steam box. And it'll really help the dough rise beautifully. So you can do that or not. Just make sure it's in as warm a place as you've got. Not warm like the oven is on warm, but just out of the draft, not near a window or something like that, or near a door where a cold breeze is going to hit it. And then we just wait. And while we're waiting on the dough to rise, I will show you what the scraper's for, to see what kind of a mess I've made on my counter. And I've had this metal dough scraper for a million years. It's nice and stiff. And mostly I use it for counter cleanup because it works so well. You can see I've got my nice sticky whole wheat dough sticking right through the counter. But using this dough scraper really takes the work out of it. Then all I have to do once I get this off is to clear everything off, wipe it down, dry it, and it's good to go. So, just a tip from me to you, if you can find one of these jobs with a nice stiff blade, you save a lot of work after you're done kneading. So, we'll see you in a few minutes, kids. Okay, it's a half an hour later, and you can see that the bread dough has doubled nicely. And I'm just getting the pans ready. This is going to make 2 loaves. And the recipe calls for 8 by 4 inch pans. And so I'm just putting a little butter in the pan. You don't need a lot. And you could use oil, you could use the spray stuff like Pam. And these are supposedly non-stick pans, but I find that it works better if you put a little oil or butter in them. So, just going to set that aside and we'll get busy with the dough. I'm going to punch it down, deflate it, in other words. Put it right out on my clean counter. Oh, this feels just wonderful. I am going to divide it in half, more or less. rolls. That's close enough. I'll set this guy aside for a minute. Now, what to do if you don't have a pan. You absolutely don't need to have a pan to make a good loaf of bread. So, to make a free-form loaf, just keep stretching the dough that's on the counter. You just keep pulling it up. Might have to do this a few times till it gets really smooth and taut. What you're trying to do is form a sort of a skin on the top of the loaf. And so I'm just continuing to pull and pull and pull. See how that's smooth and taut? Now I do that, then this is ready for the second rising if I wasn't going to use a pan. And I would put it on a tray, or if I was going to bake it on some baking tiles, or in my case, some limestone tile. I'll grab some here to show you. These are clean, they've been washed, but they've been used and used, and so they look like they've been used. And I just put these, I have 6 of them, and I put them like this, all 6, right on my baking rack. And when I heat the oven, these heat up right along with it. And then this ball of dough, I would put it on a tray sprinkled with cornmeal, a tray without sides, a flat tray, and then when it comes time to bake, I just let it roll off that cornmeal like on little ball bearings right onto these hot tiles, and it bakes that way. Or you can put it on a tray and bake it that way. It's no problem. So my point is, you don't have to have a pan to make a good loaf of bread. But today I feel like making loaves of bread, so that's how I'm going to shape it. So you can use a rolling pin if you want to, if you've got one. I'm not gonna today. But what you're trying to do here is get your dough fairly even. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you want it fairly even to get ready to shape it in the pan. At least this is how I do it. You see the pan is about that big, so about where I need to be, and then I'm going to roll it tightly like that. Roll it over, and then I'm going to actively pinch it. I really want that to super seal along the edge there. And then the ends, I pinch them, pull them under, pinch it tight. See, I'm trying to really get that dough to stick to itself again. Turn it over, pop it in the pan. So the seam side is down. Punch it in the pan. What I'm trying to do here, and I must say I'm not that good at it, is to get the dough evenly distributed in the pan so that when it rises and it bakes, you get this nice even rise on the dough. But even if it doesn't rise perfectly and it's a little lopsided, you won't win any prizes at the state fair, but it's still going to taste terrific. Next, I'll do the other one. Again, you can use a rolling pin if you feel like it. This is such a nice dough. When I put it in for the first rising, there was still some residual stickiness to it, but you can see there's absolutely none. But it's still soft, it's still springy, and it's going to make a lovely loaf of bread. So I'm going to pull this tight. Again, this is going to help create that nice tight skin on the outside, the top of the loaf that I'm looking for. And I'm going to pinch it. Pull those seams under. And again, punch it into the pan, and as I do so, try to get it evenly distributed. So I'm hoping I get a nice good rise, even rise out of it. But even if I don't, it'll still be good bread, and that's what we want. Now, it's in the pans, and it's ready for a second rising. And you might ask, why do you have to do it twice? Why do you have to let it rise, then punch the air out of it, and then shape it and rise all over again? And the reason is it really improves the flavor of the final product, and I think it improves the texture too. But I know that if you miss that that first rising, you just don't get as flavorful a bread. The yeast just doesn't have time to develop. So in they go. I'm going to put them back in my oven. It's still a cold oven, and I'm going to reheat that pan of water and put it on the bottom rack again, so I have a nice proofing cabinet, so to speak. And I'm going to wait 20 minutes and check the loaves, and I'm going to hopefully they'll be double in size. They'll be just up rounded over the top of this pan. I'm going to take them out of the oven, take my pan of water out of the oven, and then I'm going to preheat the oven. It takes about 10 minutes, and in that 10 minutes these will rise a little bit more and be ready to bake. And you can cover these while they're proofing with plastic wrap, or again a damp cloth. I can feel a little bit of oil in them, and because I've got such a nice steamy oven, I'm going to not cover them with anything, and the moisture that's residual in the oven is going to take care of what I want it to, and the tops of the loaves are not going to dry out. So we'll see you back in about 20 minutes and see how they're coming along.